I'm Keith with the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another instrument review for you. And today I have I wouldn't call it a vintage model from Yamaha, although we might be getting there, but certainly a predecessor to one of their current models, specifically the Yamaha YSL-691 small bore tenor trombone. Yamaha, of course, and we've done a number of videos over the years of different small bore tenor models. I think of all of the models out there outside of the current generation of the 891, 897, the 691 is probably the one that I get the most questions about, that people have had experience with. Now, of course, this model had a lot of inspiration from past models and, of course, provided a lot of foundation for the current 891Z. But there are some differences as well. So I'll be very excited to share all of this with you. I'm going to take a play first, talk about it afterwards. I'm going to be playing everything today on my trusty SE Shires Michael Davis Plus mouthpiece. As a maker, Yamaha is always trying to look ahead, always trying to find ways to improve their offerings, to keep evolving their instruments and the experiences they provide over the years, and frankly now generations of instruments and generations of players. And the evolution from the 691 to the 891Z is certainly a part of that. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is a model, the YSL-691 is a model that a lot of people have had experience with. I myself used this model as my very first professional small bore tenor trombone, and I I played it until I couldn't play anymore. It's still in my closet, not really in playable shape, but it was a wonderful, wonderful playing instrument. And of course, there are a lot of other folks who've had a similar kind of experience with it, but I haven't had one come through the shop and really stick around long. So when I got one in, I said, I really want to talk about it here. So the 691 shares a lot of similarities with the 891Z. Like the 691, it is a 508-inch bore. It has an 8-inch yellow brass bell, reverse tuning slide here. Has a interesting outer hand slide setup compared to the 891Z. Specifically, this has got nickel silver outer tubes with a yellow brass crook, not an uncommon setup in small bore tenors today, but it is different than the 891, which we'll talk about. And this has 3 removable lead pipes. Now, the lead pipes is one of the things that I think made this model unique. It was really, as far as I'm aware, it was one of the first really common commercial models of trombones anywhere that were using removable lead pipes. Of course, I mean, this had been done for a long time, and we were seeing this more in custom level instruments, but I first ran across this myself with the 691. So this comes with 3 removable lead pipes, a 1, 2, and 3, as we might interpret kind of a small, medium, large, as compared to the 891Z, which has got 2 lead pipes, a little bit different setup. So what's different about this than the 891Z? Well, I mentioned the lead pipes. With these, here we're playing around with more of the taper of the lead pipe, like we see with most manufacturers today, right? The 1 is going to have a smaller taper at the front, going to taper open more slowly. The 2 and the 3 are going to be gradually more open. With the 891Z, what they're doing with that is different lengths more than anything else there. So we have the New York, which is a longer lead pipe, of course, gives us more compression. You have the LA, which is a shorter lead pipe, opens things up more. So a little bit of a difference there. By the way, after doing some play testing of all 3, I ended up choosing the 3 for my particular lead pipe. In that and of itself, I think speaks to a little bit to how this instrument plays. I tend to be generally with lead pipe selections on instruments, I tend to be more of a kind of middle of the road 2 person. So I think that speaks a little bit to what this particular instrument, what this model is doing as far as the overall performance. The other big, physical difference we can pick up right away is that, like I mentioned, this has got the nickel silver outer tubes, yellow brass crook. With the 891Z, this is reversed. They've got yellow brass outer tubes with a nickel silver crook. So what does that change in how it plays? Well, of course, these physical differences, these are only a very small part of the experience. And of course, Yamaha is tweaking so many other things along with the experience. Again, we're talking about the company who is evaluating what material should they use on the water key cork to provide the correct kind of experience. So they're putting a lot of thought into all this, and there's so many little changes that are harder or impossible to see that they've made. But I think even just these physical differences, I think are at least impacting a little bit of what I'm experiencing. In comparison to the 891Z, I think it feels like a slightly more compact playing instrument. Like I mentioned, I ended up finding that I liked the 3, the most open lead pipe with this. I felt like otherwise with even the 2, I felt like it was a little compressed. It gave me fine access to the upper register, although I actually think the upper register was easier on this. But I just felt I was having to push through a little bit, and what the sound it was giving me was a little tight and almost a little hollow. With this, overall, with the number 3 lead pipe, I felt like it opened things up more, felt more accessible. Even there was always just kind of at the back end of when I was playing, there was always this little bit of, not airiness necessarily to it, but the centering kind of on the back end of the pitch was always a little bit different with it here. And certainly, it's a great playing horn, but it's a little different experience than the 891. One of the reasons people really love the 891 is because it feels, I think, like a slightly more open instrument compared to this. It feels just incredibly stable, and it has a purity to the sound, right? Not when I say purity, not a plain sound, but there's a stability to it, and kind of an immediacy and a real core to the sound. Whereas I think this is a little bit different. Now, depending who you're talking to, you could say, well, the sound has a little bit different character. This goes into a whole different kind of conversation about what Yamaha does in these progressive generations, as they continue to tweak and alter these designs, one school of thought is, well, they're constantly improving the performance, trying to improve the intonation, trying to improve the slotting of the instruments, responsiveness, range access, all of these different ideas. The other school of thought is, well, the more that they control all of these factors, the more that they engineer, or in their argument, you might say over-engineer the experience, the more character you're taking out of the instrument. They don't have the same type of life resonance to the sound. So, two different camps, two different ideas. But, I mean, overall, you can certainly see the progression of this into instruments like the 891Z. Again, I like it. I think for me, playing it, I do think I have to play just a little bit more compactly, but it is, again, it is in its own right, it is a very stable instrument. It had great range access. I had no trouble going, moving into the 12th partial or even beyond a little bit there. I felt like, especially with the number 3 lead pipe, I felt like I was able to open up with it, and it's still, the sound didn't get overly edgy, or brilliant or brittle, right? It still remained in control with all of it. And I did like, for example, in the ballad, I did feel a little bit like I was able to, play around with the color of the sound a little bit. For me, for how I play, I think it's just a little bit on the light side. I prefer a sound that's got just a little bit more openness to it. It has a little bit more, not darkness necessarily, but just a little bit more core and body to it. But I think, again, it's a very easy playing instrument, very efficient. And so I think it's something that works really, really well with us. And like I said, I think gives a good amount of tonal flexibility. And of course, it has all of the, the Yamaha build quality and everything with it. This is an instrument that's seen a lot of playing. You wouldn't know it because Yamaha knows how to build their instruments. So I, of course, enjoyed, especially this brought me back to my own past as a trombone player. And it was just great to share such a past staple model with all of you. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have had any experience with the 691, its predecessors or its successor, the 891Z, please feel free to leave those in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please think about giving it a thumbs up. Please think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't, hitting that notification button so you can find out when we have new videos coming out. And of course, you can find the Trombone Shop on Facebook and Instagram. As always, thanks for watching.